aspirational quality. Giorgio De Luca, who's one of the co-founders of Dina De Luca, talks about how things like, it wasn't just that these things tasted good, but people thought they were elevating themselves by having balsamic vinegar, by having, goat cheese, by having imported ingredients that he brought over from Italy or that someone else had brought over from France. And I liked the sound of arugula, not just because it has the same cadence as America, but because there was something aspirational. I remember when arugula happened, and I'm sure many of you do too, that as a small child, salad was the wedge of iceberg, then suddenly Caesar salads come along, people are having, romaine lettuce, woo! Cut to now, and you've got bagged mosh and bagged baby greens and purslane and whatever in supermarkets and stuff, and so arugula at a certain time in the 70s and 80s became, even though it was just a weed in Italy. Italy they didn't grow it; they just picked it wild, but it became this status thing, and I liked how that resonates in the title. How it's not just about food, it's sort of about what it represents and how it represented maybe a middle-class aspirational thing. And the very fact that Beard suddenly was holding court at the Stanford court, teaching at four-nose ovens, that legitimized California to both the East Coast and then to all the people here on the West Coast, who said, well, why isn't our food scene being paid attention to? Wait, James Beard's here. I want to go take cooking lessons with him. One of the people who did that was Marion Cunningham, who then became a protege, and then the result was that great revision of the Fanny Farmer cookbook. The chapter on Chez Panisse, what it does is it just, in my opinion, lays bare that some people love Alice and some people dislike her. Some people think she took too much credit for the genesis of the restaurant. The one thing, she is undeniably a visionary, and she saw it early on, and she stayed with the place the whole time. No one else has done that, and that's admirable. So there's two ways people critique Alice in this book. One is something of a credit hog, that we deserve more credit for Chez Panisse and what that restaurant birthed and everything. The other critique is a more recent critique, that in her current role more as a food activist, that she is not the best messenger for what is essentially a very good message. The idea that we need to pay more attention to what we eat and adhere more to the credo of seasonal, local, sustainable.
All right, so
well, I think, just talking about, okay, is it relevant to talk about someone's sexuality or someone's depression in Claiborne's case, or that sort of thing? And, again, this is food as culture. This is taking it seriously as a subject, but it's a very fun read. But at the same time, one of the really interesting things, especially about those early figures, was that it was not reputable to go into food as a profession. You didn't have college kids saying, I want to be a chef, or I want to be a cookbook author, or even, I want to take cooking seriously, period. It wasn't a reputable way of life, especially for a man back then. The only real chefs were foreigners, Frenchmen. And so this was something that people like Claiborne and Beard were not considering as a career. And they were both outsiders. They were brilliant outsiders, misfits, who couldn't find a way in society. They were gay men whose homosexuality made them feel a little bit lost and fumbling. Beard wanted to be an actor or a person in opera in New York, but couldn't find a niche there. I don't think there was a lot of call. It took 40 years or 30-odd years for her to find herself as a food person. She had this mentor, her husband, Paul Child, but she came from a well-to-do family where it was expected that she went to Smith College, and by 23 she would have hooked a man and been married and been a housewife, a well-to-do housewife. She was from Pasadena, from a wealthy family. And a similar story to Claiborne's and Beard's, where I don't think she had the depth of misery that those two men were capable of feeling, but it took her a while to figure out, is it even reputable to this thing of writing this book with Louis Berthold with Simca Beck, that was not undertaken as a career. That was just undertaken as, well, this is just something we'll do to keep ourselves occupied. And it really wasn't until that book was finally published in '61 that then she realized, oh my God, this can actually be something more substantive than just a hobby for me. This can be serious. And then it wasn't until she was on TV in '63 that she realized, oh my God, this is exploding. And there was no reputable food world. It was there for the taking because reputable people didn't want to become food people. So you had three misfits, two gay men and one woman who said she was en route to becoming an old maid, and then she met this wonderful man, Paul Child, and found her identity. So it's like how a lot of alternative art movements begin. It's the misfits, the people who don't fit in society but are brilliant nonetheless. They shaped it, they built it, they laid that platform that it all was built on.
And
Mario Batali, who's the one well-known chef, was a personal friend of mine, not just some guy I interviewed. So he was more frank and forthcoming. He said, look, we are reduced to characters on TV because TV is reductive. It has to be boiled down to some shtick that we can do in a half-hour episode. But at the same time, and sometimes I feel like I don't like having to dumb down what I'm doing, and it feels a little painful. And in fact, Mario is not even on the Food Network anymore, except for Iron Chef, because his show is considered maybe ultimately too sophisticated for the audience. But at the same time, he said, when I started on the Food Network, I just had one restaurant called Poe, which is a narrow little storefront restaurant in Greenwich Village. The TV work got him the advance on his first or second cookbook that gave him the seed money to start Babo, which is the showcase, the crown jewel of his restaurant empire. And so and Bobby Flay tells a similar story, I'm getting my message out, I'm reaching more people. But Bobby Flay, again, someone I don't really like on TV, but a much more thoughtful guy in person. And his restaurants, Mesa Grill, which is in New York, is a southwestern restaurant. Bolo, which is Spanish Bar American, which is more of a brasserie. They're really good restaurants, and they're much more sophisticated than what he ever cooks on TV. He's the grilling guy on TV. He said, I grew up in Manhattan. How much grilling did I ever do?